You're watching Channel 36's Power News live at 5. We've got the most high school sports, the most lottery numbers, and the most weather in the Tri-Swamp area. It's news time.
Good evening, I'm Brenda Rose.
And I'm Slade Austin. 2 prisoners have escaped from the Coral Palms Sheriff's Station in a daring daylight jailbreak.
The sheriff's office is coordinating their search with local and state police.
If you're watching, Greg and Larry, and I know you are, my men and I will not rest until we find you.
Strong words. And moving on, what if you were going through a drive-thru and a puppy dog took your order?
TBTL.
Did you enjoy my broadcast?
What makes you think I listened to it, Doctor?
If I hated a program as much as you hate mine, I'd probably listen out of sheer malicious spite.
Are you on the computer? Yes, I am, but I'm having trouble with my computer. I had a computer for 10 years and enjoyed it, but it died.
Yeah, I just want to say it was a beautiful service, but you and I both know you wouldn't have gotten those laughs if you weren't a pastor.
I'm sorry?
Oh, it's no big deal. I don't care. I'm just saying you're not actually funny, so don't feel proud about today.
People grieve in their own ways.
No.
I just want to say a beautiful service.
Thank you.
I hope you don't think you're deserving those laughs.
No, I just told him. I just told him. I just gave him a heads
it's
up.
the worst kind of hack.
Yeah, beautiful service, though.
Beautiful.
What do you say we go out and get some Carvel?
I got the time if you got the diapers.
Well, all right. Hello, good morning, and welcome everyone to a Wednesday edition of TBTL, the show that just might be too beautiful to live.
It's your lucky day. You just found a USB flash drive in the parking lot.
My name is Luke Burbank. I am your host.
You're still doing a pod card?
Coming to you once again from the nation's capital.
WASHINGTON, baby, DC.
That's right. Still out here shooting some television projects. Actually going down to Baltimore today, which will be exciting. Love the city of Baltimore. Probably have a full report on tomorrow's program about how everything went. In the meantime, today's program is at episode 4,476 in a collector series.
Let the fun begin.
And there is a new internet trend where guys who are friends connect in a certain way. And
just 2 men celebrating each other's strength.
I'm wondering if Andrew and I should start looking into this as male friends who have spent many, many hours, thousands of hours, in fact, sharing our hopes and dreams and feelings with each other, mostly here on this show. Wondering if we should explore this. We'll talk about that. Speaking of the longest-running Cobro of the program, maybe best known for his depictions of the tall ships. I asked him if I could just get a little more hat wobble today.
Now, Tane I can get into.
He's Andrew Walsh, and he's joining me right now. Good morning, my friend.
Good morning. You know, the Baltimore Orioles are playing the Cardinals, I think, at home.
Interessante.
In a few hours. Looks like 6:35
well, the problem
your
is,
time.
Problem is, I'm going to be banging my head loud enough to raise the dead at the Metallica show in Landover, Maryland.
Your gig is an evening gig. It's not get done and go to the ballpark.
It's a midday gig. It's an afternoon gig and it's an evening gig, Andrew. This is this is the tough life of a television correspondent. So we're going to be filming at a community college location where this organization. Well, so Metallica has this big charitable organization, and then one of the things they do, which is a very smart idea actually, is they fund a lot of like technical programs at community colleges. So if you're going to do you want to do dental hygienistry, you have to buy really expensive equipment to just enroll in the class. It's like thousands of dollars. Metallica will buy that equipment for the people taking the classes so that they can do the class and then they can get a job when they get out. And so we're going to I think a commercial driving program that Metallica is paying for in Maryland. And then we're going to interview some of the students, some of the so-called Metallica scholars. But then we're going to go to whatever they call the place where the Washington Commanders, when they had a different name, used to play. FedEx Field, it was called for a while. I don't know what they call it, but whatever that stadium is in Landover, Maryland, we're going to go there, and I'm going to watch them and Pantera, and I think Suicidal Tendencies, although I might have been wrong about that. I said that on the show the other day. I know the 3 of them have been playing together. I'm not sure if all 3 are playing tonight, but yeah, that's where I'll be. I'll be honest with you. I would be very happy to be at the Baltimore Orioles game. Mm-hmm. That's a little more my speed than a Pantera show, but this is what we do for our jobs, Andrew.
Someday I'll go to a Baltimore Orioles game. I guess
Do you have a hat I can borrow?
I do. I mean, it's going to smell a little bit like fish. Is that going to be okay? It's going to smell a little bit like fish in somebody else's unlocked dumpster. It is, of course, the hat I wear when I'm trying to disguise myself and dispose of things here in the Seattle area. Everybody has a Mariners cap, but this guy, this perp, had a Baltimore Orioles cap, and then they're looking around for a They go door to door and they're asking people if they know anything, like who's in the pitching rotation for the Baltimore Orioles, and I will be legitimately so ignorant about that they'll never accuse me of illegal dumping.
Much like my mother putting one headphone in to sneak back into the Y, that is the weirdest criminal move that you could make, but I also, for some reason, understand it. Like, of course, this was the story from a couple weeks ago where you had some seafood that you were throwing away, some uncooked, what was it, shrimp or something?
It was like basically my my food waste container I thought had been skipped that week, and I had some really nasty food waste in there, including some shrimp that was stinking up the yard and turning into a living cesspool.
And so you thought you had to dispose of it, and you had a dumpster in mind, which was associated with a restaurant a few miles from your house, which they already probably throw a lot of that kind of stuff away. And you had noted that it was unlocked, and you went up there. But in order, because you were a little bit worried about security cameras, as well you should be, because everything is filmed these days, you decided to put on a Baltimore Orioles baseball cap, which was part of your plan to be anonymous, even though, of course, it's much more noteworthy than a Mariners hat. Mariners hat blends you into the crowd, but I think your logic, as you already said, was you don't identify as a Baltimore Orioles fan because you don't think you know very much about the team. So it means you have effectively a disguise on. You'd put on a fake mustache of sorts related to sports fandom, but the only way it would really help you would be if the police showed up at your house and they asked you a series of Orioles questions and you believably didn't know.
Yeah, they have to hook me up to a lie detector, so they know I'm not lying when I really don't know anything about that baseball
say, what was
team.
Cal Ripken's brother's name?
Right. They might even just say who's Cal
And that was
Ripken.
Billy Ripken. And they would say what was famously written on the knob of Billy Ripken's bat that became one of the most iconic baseball cards of all time.
I know that one, but he was.
Well, now you are failing the test.
Wait, was he?
They're hauling you away.
Was it the F word? Was it the?
It was the F word.
The four-letter F word. I did not know that was Cal Ripken's brother, though. That's news to me. I didn't know that.
I believe that was Billy Ripken.
Did
but
not
see, even
played
the
for a
fact
different
that you
team
knew,
or the same team.
Same team at the time, I believe.
Oh, really? Okay, I didn't know that. Okay.
But see, that's what I'm saying. You answered that question slightly in the affirmative, that you knew that that bat existed.
You got to keep it believable, though.
Keep it believable, dude.
Yeah, no, that's what I'm saying. I knew that, but I didn't know it had anything to do with the ball.
I
just remember kids talking about this baseball card, but I wouldn't have known the last name, the first name, the team, and therefore they're like, oh yeah, he's totally passing this. He's being earnest. He's being honest. I was also, I should mention, wearing a face covering because this was several years ago, and people are still wearing face coverings quite a bit after the pandemic, but I also needed that face covering in earnest because the garbage stank so bad. I have an interesting update to that story, and this is why I always got to be a little bit careful with, like, kind of sometimes giving away our assassination coordinates, because listeners love hunting things down, right? And so they love, like, kind of telling you, hey, I found out where you live. I use Google Maps or whatever, and you're always like, great, that's fantastic for you. But somebody went out there and tracked down the actual dumpster I was talking about. Somehow it is on Google Maps. That shocks me because it's in this parking lot behind the place. But they found
a Google vehicle was driving down the road and snapped a pic of the dumpster.
Let me see if I can find this, because they didn't send it to me. They posted it on social media in, like, the Stens page on Slack and said, looks like they have a lock on it now. And they literally were able to enhance, because I said the name of the restaurant, and this again is going back a ways, and so I think that, like, the statute of limitations has hopefully run out on this, but somebody was so curious as to the actual dumpster, they found it on Google Maps, and it looks like it now has a lock on it, leading to the question, am I responsible for that lock? Did they find a very small little bag of old shrimp in there and say, we got to lock this down?
I can't imagine a scenario in which you weren't responsible for that lock going on there, right?
How dare you? Now, this was years ago. I truly, aside from trying to make podcast magic, there's no way it's not, I'm talking about, this is a full-size dumpster, and I'm talking about I had a, kitchen-sized bag of garbage.
Yes.
That was the size of the bag, but the garbage in it was probably maybe a quarter of that bag rolled up tightly. This was
It's not possible that shrimp smelled so bad that somebody from the restaurant, when throwing away their stuff, went, okay, this ends now.
I mean, it's a possibility. I would be pretty shocked, but I mean, I guess if that is my legacy, I guess, be careful what you wish for. I've always said I want to leave a legacy, and I guess that's what my legacy is.
They looked at the footage and they just said, freaking Orioles fans. So rude.
Damn Orioles fans.
So incredibly rude. Hey, speaking of...
Here it is. By the way,
rude,
it says the Hidden Door Dumpster. Hidden Door is the name of the restaurant, which is how I assume this person was able to find it. I don't know this person's name. They post under a pseudonym on the Slack page. It says, the Hidden Door Dumpster. Google Street View shows the dumpster with a lock on it as of August 2021. Was that before or after the shrimp incident?
That would have been before.
I feel like...
Because I don't think you owned your house in 2021, did you? Is time flying this fast?
Well, let's see, it's 2025. No, we haven't been here for 4 years. I think we're going on 4 years. So this is this is my legacy. They knew I was a man in trouble. They unlocked it for me because this is what neighbors do for each other, Luke.
Is it possible that you were in such an agitated state? Because you have described the series of events.
I know where you're going, and I love it.
You ripped the lock apart with your bare hands and have no memory of it because you were in a fugue state?
Oh, no. I'm seeing now a Google Street View from 2024, and it is just a mangled remnant of a lock.
Yes.
That seems to be. And it looks like there's some there are some pictures that says, do not serve this man, and it shows a Hulk. He's wearing
mixed nuts at the scene.
Yeah, and it looks like it's a very buff guy in tiny little shorts. He's green, he's hulked out, but he's wearing a face mask and a Baltimore Ravens hat, and it says, do not serve this man. So I don't know. I guess the mystery just deepens.
Speaking of bad behavior, I'm getting in some serious trouble with my mom, Susie B., about some behaviors of late. Remember yesterday on the show when I was trying to remember what the DVD was that she left in the DVD player at the World Mark? So I texted her and she clarified. She said it's where the Crawdads sing, and then why ? And then I didn't respond because we were doing the show, and also honestly I didn't want to point her in the direction of listening. I love my mom so much, but I sometimes, even if I mean stuff in love, I can understand this. When she hears it, it maybe doesn't sound exactly to her the way I intend it. Just easier for my life if my mom is a very occasional TBTL listener. And so I didn't respond. And then some time goes by, and then my mom goes, "Are you using my mishaps again for conversation on TBTL?"
Yes.
And I said, "I would never do that." Cry laughy emoji. She said, "Sure. Or on Instagram," and then mad face. And then I realized, she also saw this Instagram. I was for when we had Camaro Kev over on the Monday show, I was showing him some photos of the questionable food products that my mom had brought to my house on that weekend. And I also had posted on Instagram, and it was just kind of a running thing of some of the odd stuff that my mom does. But then it ended with a very cute picture of my mom and dad sitting on the porch, which I love that for them. Those two are in a freaking love affair, which is extremely cute to see. They are each other's best friends, and they call each other multiple times a day, and all they want to do is sit on the deck staring at the river talking. Haven't you guys discussed everything you could in your life at this point? But no, apparently
they can
not.
say the same thing to us, my dude.
Yeah. They don't even oh, you mean you? I thought you meant you and Genevieve. No, you mean you and I. Fair question. Very fair question. But I forgot that my mom is on Instagram now. She doesn't post anything, but she goes on there occasionally. And I said, so she said, sure, or on Instagram, mad face. And I was like, oh, she saw the post where I said that she had, she brought this weird stuff to my house. And I said, well, did you see the end of that post? It's a cute photo of you and Dad. And she goes, just the back of us. It was.
Oh, are they looking? It's over their shoulder. They're looking out at something. That sounds cute.
Yeah. Anyway, so I have to be careful. I have to start wearing a Baltimore Orioles hat when I say things about my mom on the show,
when you
or
dunk
post
on
things
your
on
mom.
Instagram about
Yeah.
my mom, because it does get on her radar at this point.
Yeah, that always worries me too. I don't want to go into detail, but I had spent a big chunk of yesterday kind of hoping that somebody didn't hear something that I said on a podcast. Not that I said anything nasty, and I realized that this person has a pretty good chance of hearing it. So I mean, I wasn't like, but I was just generally speaking, like sometimes people don't like to hear. They don't like to hear themselves. I remember, did I feel this way, or did somebody else feel this way in my early days on TBTL of just kind of being like, I think maybe Genevieve had some early slightly weird feelings about being discussed so much on TBTL. She does not feel that way anymore, and obviously she's such a part of the community now. But I think back then we didn't have our own podcast together. She didn't feel like she necessarily had her own mic, and to turn on a show and hear a discussion that is kind of about, or certainly surrounding her life too, and not having a way to kind of weigh in can be a kind of a disconcerting feeling, I think.
I can totally understand that. I mean, the other part of this, and we were just talking about this the other day, is there's a group of folks in my life who are not regular listeners, or people that I really know, but they will tune in on a Monday after we've been spending time together for the weekend, or just any time. If an event has been going on, or if, a trip has been happening or anything, there are some people that are savvy enough to know that this is basically just kind of like a live blog of our life. And so there's a chance. And so then those people will pop in on those days. So if I am going to talk about those folks, I have to remember there's a decent chance they'll hear this. Now, they're not going to go 3 shows into the week. They're not saints. They're not masochists. Saints and Masochists sounds like a nightclub that would open in Vegas. I just read this New York Times
like a
article.
Band that you would hate, or an album by a band that you would hate.
They're opening for Pantera, opening for Metallica tonight. I just read this article in the New York. Actually, I don't think it was New York Times. Maybe they were reprinting it. It was like AP or something. But the thrust of it was millennials and Gen Z do not like gambling. They're not as interested in gambling as, I guess, baby boomers are, and also, I guess, what are we, Gen X?
Mm-hmm.
I find it very heartening that we're only barely Gen X. I don't know why that matters to me. I mean, I'm like 49 years old. I'm not young, but I like the fact that I could almost, if I was like 4 years younger, I could almost be Gen Z.
Oh no, not Gen Z,
Millennial.
Millennial, I think.
I could almost be a millennial.
I think, yeah, because honestly, you and I guess you only have like 6 months on me or something, but like even me, like I'm technically on the cusp, which is something that I've never tried to bend towards the younger generation, because I was always so proud to be part of Gen X, and now I'm, what's the word? Not proud to be Gen X, based on what our generation hath wrought this country, I believe. So, yeah, it's kind of funny how now I'm kind of like, well, technically, like I'm kind of between Gen X and millennials, really. I mean, I like, I like really skinny jeans and bands from Brooklyn.
Yeah, you don't want to be. You're putting whatever the equivalent of a Canadian flag on your backpack is generationally.
Right, exactly, yeah.
But yeah, the article was that apparently the young people, they don't gamble as much when they go to Las Vegas. They like to go to the day clubs and the nightclubs and have experiences. They're a generation of people that want to experience things and not just dump their money into a slot machine. And that the casinos are now kind of pivoting for that, because this is, of course, the next generation of people that will be coming in there. And I just thought, like, believe you me, I don't feel bad for any of these casinos, but that has got to be bad news for them, because no matter how much you rip people off for bottle service at the club, you are not, I mean, there's no replacement for people mindlessly, emotionally shoveling money into a machine that does not give them the money back most of the time. I mean, that's the perfect business model. If you can convince people that that's fun. And it sounds like the younger generations are not convinced that that's fun.
All right, well, I have not read this article. This is the first I'm hearing about it. So let me weigh in heavily with my theories on it, okay?
Perfect.
Because gambling, and this, I'm speaking as somebody who luckily does not find myself with any kind of unhealthy draw towards gambling. Like Vives and I love to do some pull tabs as something to do at the bar, but anytime I hand over $20 or $40 for some pull tabs, I never expect to see that money again. So I don't go chasing. Like I don't even have on the lowest level. I don't have that instinct. But it is a known fact. It is known, as they say on SNL, where they famously broke Luke. It is known that there is an addiction that people can have towards gambling. And so what it sounds like these businesses need to do is just repackage it by bringing people through the door, by providing more live entertainment. I don't know if you can get like the guy who brought the rock and roll edge to the Eagles or something along those lines.
That would be quite a get.
Try to find younger acts that will maybe bring people through the door, but then you just got to give them a little taste of the candy. And I would also say this, and I don't know if the article got into this because, again, I told you I do not read. And I do play video games, and I know that a huge part of this generation that is now becoming adults were playing the kind of video games that were free to play, but then they had these built-in, like, kind of pay-to-play things that were kind of based on gambling, because it's not like, hey, let's say I'm playing this race car game, right? I'm playing this race car game, and it's free, but I can go into the game store and buy upgrades so that I can get flashy tires for my car or whatever.
In-app purchases,
which are some, you can just say, hey, I want this thing and buy it, but that's not where the real money is. The real thing that they've been trying to kind of clamp down on more and more is you can buy a pack of cards, like virtual cards, and maybe your fancy wheels will be in there. And if they're not, then you can buy gambling. That's just gambling. And that's it's kind of a scourge in the gaming world. And a lot has been, obviously smarter people than me have weighed in on this. But I sort of think like that is still this generation. I think gambling just looks a little bit different. And in some ways, some of these games have almost been grooming this generation for that kind of gambling.
I didn't think about that. I don't think the article got into that. Also, I'm going to be honest with you. There was a point at which the article became so numbers heavy that I just sort of glazed over. It was like the average Vegas visitor spends $626 on gambling and $89 on entertainment, and then it was like comparing that to some other thing, and then I think I just started looking at TikTok.
Yeah, right. And I started playing a video game with in-app purchases.
Yes, exactly. I started buying armaments in for my guild, and this is where I'm so far over my skis. I couldn't even give you a pretend scenario where I was doing an in-game purchase. I figured people might get armor, and then maybe there's a guild, but what game would that even be in?
Dude, I was giving that example. I gave the example of cars, and then I tapped out after tires.
I love it. We each picked different areas that we somehow know next to nothing about.
But like, I should be able to name, what did I say, tires or wheels? Whatever I said. I was like, you could buy wheels or the other things on cars.
Where you have actually probably been inside a video game that you could probably use as a direct example that you probably would know more about.
I've been inside of a car before too. I mean, that's also the thing.
Well, there's that. That's true. That's one of your favorite ways to deliver garbage to dumpsters that you're not supposed to be taking it to.
Allegedly.
Hey, speaking of adventures, I understand that you and Vives are going to the Mariners game tonight, and you had told me that there is some sort of a bobblehead on offer. Whose bobblehead is it?
Okay, so quick cleanup on that. Vives and I are not going to the game. I'm going to the game with a friend tonight, another friend. Genevieve is also a friend. I want to make that clear. But no, I'm going to the game tonight. But Genevieve does come into play here, I think, in a somewhat interesting or somewhat surprising way, if you know Genevieve at all. But yeah, so I'm going to the game tonight with a buddy, and it is a Randy Arozarena bobblehead night.
Oh.
Now, it's one of those 3-day giveaway things that they've been trying recently. I don't think they started them this year. It used to be back in the day, there'd be like one giveaway, one night, get your ass there.
Dude,
but
now night at the Kingdom,
Mm-hmm.
I was like, this is a once in a lifetime opportunity, and we were there early so I could get my bat.
And then what I think they realized is, if you spread this out across 3 games, you might be able to lift attendance, across 3 games instead of 1. And I think some people are sort of grousing about that, but I don't know exactly why, other than it just sort of maybe is maybe just sort of seems desperate or another opportunity to make more money, but you're just paying the regular price for a ticket, right? So it's not that big of a deal. But so I'm trying to figure this out. We're playing the Nationals tonight, which is not. How are the Nationals?
The number one dad
doing?
rock MLB team.
that's the National is what I was probably.
Oh, that's the National.
This
is different.
That's probably what I was trying to describe before when I was trying to think of a good millennial band. But
batting third, Fake Empire.
Do you think I'm getting in my head about this now? I'm just trying to figure this out.
I was kind of proud that I pulled a National song.
I would, yeah. I have to take your word on that. Are the Nationals a team that you think like maybe that's just a team that here in Seattle you might need a little oomph to get more people to show up to that. Then I mean, clearly the big ones like the Red Sox are in town or the Dodgers or something. I guess the National Series maybe isn't
the
a
Nationals
huge draw.
is. I think my guess would be that it's a little bit complicated because of a couple of reasons. One, Washington, D.C. is I speak as a person who is currently in Washington, D.C., Andrew. It's such it's a place that's full of so many people that came from somewhere else. I mean, there's obviously like a culture of people that grow up in D.C., but there's a lot of people that are transplants. And so you got a lot. And you also have the fact that they didn't have a baseball team here for kind of a long time. They had the Senators, and I think the Senators became the Montreal Expos. Is that right? And there was a long period of no baseball in D.C. So that kind of also, I think, undercuts a certain generational fan base, or it can. So, yeah, I wouldn't imagine that, and again, the Nationals have plenty of very, very serious fans. Like, they've won a World Series, I believe. The Mariners haven't. But, like, I could see it not being like when the Blue Jays come to town or the Red Sox or the freaking Yankees.
It looks like so you're definitely right that the Expos became the Nationals because I remember that happening.
The Expos became the Nationals, so I wonder who the Senators became.
I think the Senators became the Twins, according to a quick Google. I don't know if I'm right about that.
Good job, Stu.
I'm just reading what is in front of me based on like the internet trying to summarize for me, but hopefully we can count on that being right. But I do know for sure that the Expos did become the Nationals. And by the way, I have no beef with the Nationals at all. I kind of like that whole division. I have generally good feelings about all those teams, but I loved the Expos logo so much. It would be an interesting troll if I could get myself an Expos hat if I got an Expos hat and I wore this to the game in Seattle, people would just assume I'm a longtime Nationals fan, probably, right?
Well, you would be doing a complicated thing though that we've been talking about offline a lot with our friend and colleague John Sklaroff, which is like when the Oklahoma City Thunder are playing basketball and the announcers are talking about their accomplishments when they were the Seattle Supersonics. Like they haven't won an NBA championship since 80 or 79. I think that's really dirty. I don't think that you should, when you have a new name and you're in a new city, you should not get to claim the history of the team from somewhere else. And in a way, by the way, I agree with you. I love the Expos logo. I used to wear an Expos hat, but that'd be interesting. That'd be kind of a flex to wear that to a Nationals game because you're kind of, it's like wearing a Sonics jersey to an Oklahoma City Thunder game, I guess.
Yeah, I guess so. Is it kind of what
the
does
North
that
remembers.
give? Is it the North remembers? Is it sort of is it a kind of a tipping of the hat too, or is it a bit of a trolling? It really depends on what's going on.
I think it's kind of like I think it's keeping it legit. I think it's like, hey, know your history.
Yeah.
Also, it's a cool flex because not too many people will ask you to start naming Montreal Expos. You know what I mean? Like, I know that's a fear for you when you wear a hat for a team. See previous Baltimore conversation. So, like, the thing is, all you have to remember is Vladimir Guerrero. And I'm talking senior. That's all you got to remember.
Right. Well, I mean, shout out to Andre Dawson and Gary Carter. And
sure.
I looked this up.
Wait, those guys were both Expos?
I don't
totally
know, man.
think they're.
I'm trusting the
I think
internet
those
again.
guys are Cubs coded in my mind.
I mean, listen, this is just like the top thing that the internet spit
you're
back
right.
at me, but that
Pedro
probably meant
Martinez?
they might have just had moments with them. I don't know I want to make it very clear. I wasn't trying to be smart there. I was totally I was going to try to make you laugh by listing names I don't know.
That did make me laugh. If you would have really gotten me if you threw down a Tim Raines.
Yeah, see, I wouldn't have even known one from the other, to be honest with you.
Tim Raines was I think a kind of a longtime Expo. I'm with you though that the Expo logo is
Oh, it's so sweet,
is
right?
Very, very cool.
I
Very,
actually
very cool.
would
Okay.
maybe get that hat. Yeah. So all of that is to say, tonight
Bobbleheads.
is a Randy Arozarena bobblehead night at the ballpark here in Seattle. And so I'm going with a friend. And now I did make a point. This is our buddy Neil. You know Neil. And I made a point of seeing if Neil wanted to go to this game together, because Neil goes to a lot of games, especially before his calendar filled up with other life stuff early in the season. He just tries to see as many games as possible. So he was at the ballpark for almost every night for the first month of Mariners home games. And he went, I believe, to all 3 nights that had this bobblehead giveaway of Julio Rodriguez. This might have been the first or second week of the season. And it was the Julio bat flip bobblehead. And it was like this bobblehead where the bat isn't even in Julio's little bobblehead hands. It's on this little, it's supposed to be kind of invisible, but it's on this little stand so you can spin the bat.
I'm looking
so it
at
sort of
it.
looks like you can. It's like he's flipping his bat away, and we were watching. I feel like this might have been the opening series or something, because I was watching this game with Genevieve, and she's not somebody who I've ever known to give a big hoot about bobbleheads, and she's certainly somebody who lives her life with the kind of less.
Yes.
Stuff like that, the better. Little collectibles and
I think she's kind of like me. I am like her in that way.
Which is weird, though, but she also does have it's interesting. Whatever. I don't have to get into our relationship. She definitely has been collecting things secretly now, because she knows, I think, that she has some tendencies to not know when to stop buying certain things. But she's kind of, I think she's trying to maybe she's been buying a lot of pottery and then flipping it. But I've been going out into the garage. I'm like, oh, there's a new mirror in this garage, and it was something that she's trying to fix up and resell or whatever. But she has been kind of on a bit of more of an acquisitional romp than usual. But when it comes to little tchotchkes like this, especially sports tchotchkes, you wouldn't think she'd be interested in that. But we're watching the game, and Genevieve sees them showing off the Julio Rodriguez bat flip little bobblehead, and she falls in love with it. She's like, that is so cool. And then, Luke, apparently you didn't see this, but during one of those games, they had a life-size version of the bobblehead. I guess a life-size version of a bobblehead is just the size of a bobblehead. But they had a human-size version, recreation of the bobblehead where he's flipping the bat, where fans could go up and spin the big bat, and it would kind of flip on it. And then once she saw that, she was like, oh my God, this thing is so cool. She's like, I think she even said, we got to go to the game this week. We got to get one of those. And I was like, I can't. I don't know why, but I was like, I can't go to the game this week. But I knew that our buddy Neil had been going to all of these games, and we had been texting a lot. And he said, hey, I have an extra one of these Julio bobbleheads. Or he said, if I get one of these Julio bobbleheads, if I get 2 of them, I'll give you the extra one. And I said, listen, the truth of the matter is, believe it or not, I'm not huge into bobbleheads. I think they're super cute. I like getting them at the stadium because I like the feeling of getting something, but I don't want to become somebody with too much of that kind of bric-a-brac in my life. I could just sort of see it becoming
It can get out of control.
Yeah, and I already just have a lot of clutter, I feel like, on the bookshelves of my office in here. I'd rather kind of move the opposite direction. So I was like, that's really sweet of you. I don't really want the bobblehead, but I said, and no pressure on this, but if you happen to get an extra one of these, you should give it to Genevieve instead. And I won't tell her that we had this conversation, but you'll surprise the hell out of her. And she's been sort of really kind of salivating over these Julio Rodriguez bat flip bobbleheads. So plan goes accordingly. Neil gets an extra one of these things. He surprises Genevieve with it at a bingo night because we're young.
Nice.
Bingo nights are a big part of our life. And she was so happy. She was so excited about that. And here's where I guess that's where I think the interesting thing is that Genevieve is more of a bobblehead person than I am, a baseball bobblehead person than me, because I have I'm going to this game with Neil to see if I can get Genevieve a Randy Arozarena bobblehead. I need to get there early, not for me, but so that Genevieve can have a friend to go with her Julio bobblehead.
This is not where I thought the story was going. So it is Genevieve related because she is the bigger bobblehead fan in the family. Now, would you have felt differently about that Neil's offer if you knew that one of these Julio bat flip bobbleheads, someone is trying to sell it online for $48?
$48? That could get me get me out of a few jams.
You know what? You could do 4 interest-free Klarna payments for $11.25
to buy that. How many Fubos is that? Is that half a Fubo?
At what point are we going to start seeing young children that are named Klarna?
I've never even heard of. Is that one of those?
You've never heard of Klarna?
I don't do as much online shopping, and I think when I get to that page, I just skip through it quickly because I'm never buying anything that needs down payments. If you know what I mean.
Klarna, in my mind, is kind of, it's like a lot of the things that I sort of do, I guess, or web social media that I look at. It's kind of youth coded, and by youth I mean anyone under 40. Like a lot of the stuff that is sold on Instagram, I don't know if it has to do with the Shopify app or whatever. There's just, when there's something for sale, again, very often through Instagram, that is kind of an impulse buy, kind of a thing that you probably don't really need, but it's well kind of framed, for whatever. They'll say, basically Klarna is just a credit card or just a payment thing, but it's like, and a lot of clothes will be, on Klarna. I think a lot of young people who are buying things, and maybe if they don't have the money at the moment, they'll use Klarna for it. But it's just like one of these things that's just sort of sprung up in the last few years. It went from being something I had no idea about to something I see all the time. And I'm just waiting until we start seeing some babies named Klarna. It's kind of a cute name.
Here's my disappointment is I'm learning right now that I started watching baseball just in time to miss the Jose Vidro era.
Oh, yeah.
Are you familiar with Jose Vidro?
The name rings a bell. Was he a Mariner?
Apparently played almost his entire career with the Expos / Nationals. So actually made the thing, but then played the final season, 2007-2008 with the Seattle Mariners. I believe I started watching the Mariners, I think the 2009 season. So there's a little buffer in there, but I just missed Jose Vidro.
That sounds, when you said a guy who played a long and successful career with insert two team names, and then spent his last year effectively out to pasture with the Mariners. Sure. That sounds so true to me. That sounds exactly like the kind of player. The Mariners are there's actually two kind of players that the Mariners really like to try to bring in if they can. One is the Jose Vidros of the world, who are kind of no longer probably at their peak powers. They like to bring that person in for their final season where father time really catches up with them. And then the other kind of player that we like to get is someone who has been very good, but then would like to have the worst season of their career and then go somewhere else and then become good again. That's the other thing that we specialize in. And then the occasion, and this is the outlier, the person who was good somewhere else, Mitch Garver, who comes to Seattle and plays historically bad, but who the Mariners continue to employ the following season. And that's the sweet spot. That's what you want. You want a guy who's suffered through a historically bad season, and then you want to say, thank you, we'll order another round of that.
I just hope that Jim Riggleman gave Jose Vidro a nice soft landing. I've never even heard of Jim Riggleman. My knowledge of Mariners managers only goes back to Don Wakamatsu, who apparently took the bat from Jim Riggleman. I've never even heard that name.
I don't remember the Riggleman era either, and I bet you, what year was that?
Oh, you know what? Because he just did the last 90 games of the season after apparently
who got fired?
John McLaren
getting fired. I do remember him. Okay, so Riggleman was like finishing out the season. Also, what year are we talking about there?
So this is Luke, it's the end of the Jose Vidro era. It's
okay,
I'm looking at
obviously.
So Vidro was I believe it was the 2007-2008 season. That would have been John McLaren and then Jim Riggleman.
I'm in LA. I'm watching the Dodgers, Andrew, a soulless. I have to say, the Dodgers in those days, were not that good and just seemed less inevitable than they do now with all the... I don't think the Dodgers have probably ever been a team that was underspending, but there seemed to be... Well, first of all, this is what I told myself, and, we'll make up all kinds of things to justify our bad decisions, but I thought you get a National League and an American League team. Like, I wasn't ever going to root for a different American League team, but I would root for another National League team. And what was a mile from my house? Dodger Stadium in the sunshine, mid-century stadium, and my friend had tickets, so I justified it. But in that era, I was probably minimally monitoring the Seattle Mariners and their ups and downs with Jim Riggleman.
Is it a coincidence that I happen to open up the Ascendant app Blueski, and the first thing I see is Mina Kimes posting a new photo of her and her dog Lenny, and she's wearing a Junior T-shirt, a Mariners T-shirt from like the mid-1990s here. Could this possibly be a coincidence, or are we all on the same Mariners wavelength right now?
Is it one of those ones where it's like a cartoon of Griffey and he has like a very big head? It's almost like a caricature that they would draw down on the boardwalk.
No, I am looking.
I miss those shirts.
It looks like it's just his baseball card. I don't know if it's a rookie baseball. It doesn't look like he's young enough to be his rookie baseball card. It looks like, I don't see it fully clearly, but it looks like his baseball card reprinted on the front of a shirt. It actually is a really cool shirt.
Oh yeah, I've got eyes on this. Yeah, you're right. It's a photograph. There was this era of, I don't know if they expanded into football, but they definitely did it with basketball and baseball, where it was a kind of a cartoonish version of the player. And when I say cartoonish, I mean a caricature. It'd be as if you were, it's like Ken Griffey Jr. was on a surfboard.
Sure,
like that classic thing. Except instead of that, he was
tiny little surfboard while his head is really big.
Yeah, but he's actually batting. But it's that same style of drawing, and I'm waiting for those shirts to come back. I thought those shirts were very, very cool when I was a kid.
It does sound cool, and I'm kind of surprised they aren't hotter now. I mean, I guess we've kind of gone through the hardcore '90s kind of what would you say? The reintegration of '90s fads or whatever. That's not how you would say that, but that's, I think.
No, I know what you mean.
Technically, I think those words are right, but what a weird way to say it.
Yeah, like it'll be another 20 years before the 90s nostalgia that we just experienced cycles back through.
Yeah,
now we're moving into like early 2000s nostalgia or whatever it would be.
But certain things have seemed to have like kind of taken a bit of permanence. Like I'm still seeing more Doc Martens on the reg than I was in like 2005. You know, like there's still that seems to have really
stuck around. I figured that was totally a trend that I feel like, I'm sure there were other examples that felt like one of those trends. The first time that I experienced a trend 2 times in my kind of conscious life. In other words, I remember being in high school and everybody was really into Doc Martens. I wasn't. I was not goth. I was never really into them then. And then they came back around and like Addie was wearing them. And that was one of my first experiences of going like, I remember when those were big the first time. But they've kind of stuck around.
Yeah, and of course that's what got me and my dad into chain link addiction, was him purchasing me my Doc Martens, my Oxblood Doc Martens, which I absolutely adored. And if it meant going into a bondage shop with old Bob Walsh, well then so be it.
But you're like what? You're 28 years sober on your chain link addiction. Didn't you just get another chip for that? Like, I know you've been in a lot of meetings and stuff. It gets a little bit
personal, and so I had to, at one point I had to kind of start over. I had to kind of start counting over.
Sure, that's fine.
It's not something I talk about a lot on the show.
That's fair. No, that's your journey.
But yeah, I would always, I guess, describe myself as somebody addicted to chain link. Yeah,
in recovery from chain link addiction.
Yeah, that's how I describe
grateful
it.
Chain link addict.
We was hoping for some razzle dazzle.
Razzle dazzle.
That's right, man. Razzle dazzle.
On your mark.
On your mark.
Get set.
Get set.
Now ready.
Ready. Go.
Everybody razzle dazzle.
All right, let's thank these dazzling donors. These folks have been donating a dazzling amount of dough. It's the only way that this show can happen. Until Andrew starts a lucrative bobblehead reselling business. Where he's selling Jose Vidro bobbleheads.
Oh, now see that I would get into. Now that I've got my own lore about it. Oh, one thing I should just say about those bobbleheads is one of the reasons Genevieve, I think, is into them is she does have an office at work. And so that's the perfect thing to take to your at-work office. It's a little conversation piece, but you don't have to clutter up, the home with it if you're not like a collector. And I'm not trying to make it sound like people who are into bobbleheads are all, have cluttered homes. It's just not something that we've decided to focus on.
Well, also because there's so many of them now. I mean, probably every single TV show that you can think of or movie that's popular has been bobblehead-atized. Certainly every sport has. It's the kind of thing that we have been, even podcasts can be bobbleheaded. In fact, people hearing this right now are looking at a bobblehead of you and I, Andrew, and going, watch your mouth. I don't know if Ivan Vukovic is doing that. He is our first dazzling donor today, and of course, he's over there in Amsterdam in the Netherlands. I remember when Ivan and Rachel moved over there.
Me too.
Way back when, and they're still there. And we love to hear from Ivan. Ivan says, "Here we go again. This is a challenging moment riddled with uncertainty and chaotic forces that feel so far beyond our control. I hope everyone out there is finding ways to take care of themselves and to do whatever they need to do to make even these grimmer times full of warmth and lasting positive memories. For me, this has often come in the form of connecting with others, sometimes in the most remote and unexpected of places. So this year, I would like to dedicate my dazzling donor message to the small but mighty contingent of tens here in Amsterdam.
Nice.
I didn't realize that we had I do, now that I'm looking at some of these names, I do remember some of this. I've had the pleasure of crossing paths with you folks in some shape or form over the last few years, and there's something uniquely delightful about finding multiple TBTL listeners in corners far from my beloved Pacific Northwest. Abby, Marshall, and Spencer, you've all helped make the world feel small in the best way possible. Luke, Andrew, and John, thanks, as always, for making this possible. Gratefully, Ivan. Well,
we're grateful.
Ivan, thank you for making this possible with your support from all the way over there in Amsterdam. And I know what you mean. Like, it's sort of like, it'd be like finding a Seahawks bar in Dusseldorf. Like, when you're far away from what was your original home, and you like this very niche thing, and then you can get together with even 3 or 4 other people in your town who like that niche thing. That's got to be a good feeling.
Yeah, absolutely. And I really do appreciate that. And also, maybe you guys can, spread the word a little bit. Like, I'm reading this sci-fi novel right now by Octavia Butler called it's called Clay's Ark, I believe. It's like part 3 in a 4-part series that I'm kind of working my way through. And this is not where I should have taken it. But basically the plot is, and we're just going to start from the beginning here. Somebody has brought a space disease down to Earth, Luke. And it's like these tiny microorganisms that once a human being gets infected, like Patient Zero did out in outer space before he crash landed back into Earth, and I believe the year 2021, oddly enough. So this is sort of the future and history at the same time. He is now riddled with this disease that is a bunch of living organisms, that these organisms just force this human being to take actions that are kind of against his will, but he is compelled to do it in order to spread these organisms throughout mankind. And he and a few people who are also infected now are trying to not let it spread to the rest of the world, because it spreads so quickly that eventually the entire world will just be taken over by human beings who are under control of these microorganisms. So they are just very carefully bringing a few people into the flock just to grow enough that they can survive, but hopefully not infect all of mankind. And all of that is to say, let's bring a little bit of that energy to the Netherlands. Let's just bring a little. Let's grow it a little bit. More not people too much. Not too much. Just Clay's Ark. Just do the Clay's Ark thing. Rachel is an author. She understands what I'm talking about.
Yeah, exactly.
Here. So let's just
Isn't
do a little bit of
that. You also told me that was the plot of The Count of Monte Cristo.
I believe there's a lot of it's hard to tell if it's an homage, if Octavia Butler
is
just
straight up theft,
just stealing classically. But either way, it's definitely a lot of overlap for sure.
Well, Ivan, thank you so much. We really appreciate you. Hope you and the other 10s out there are having a nice time in the Netherlands. Maestro?
On your mark.
On your mark.
Get set.
Get set.
Now ready.
Ready. Go.
Everybody razzle dazzle.
Well, if it isn't our dear friend Cheryl Churchick in Corvallis, a.k.a. Cheryl in Corvallis.
Cheryl. You said a.k.a. Cheryl in Corvallis. I know I've told this on this story on the show before, but whenever I think of that now, we know Cheryl is Cheryl in Corvallis, but for a brief period of time, I had an editor on the TBTL newsletter whose background was like being a real editor for like shows like Marketplace or whatever. So therefore Joanne would make edits in my newsletter that would make it like more accurate or more newsy or more whatever. And
kind of like normal, like sort of not elements of style, but AP style kind of thing.
Exactly. I'll never forget the edit that came back, like Cheryl in Corvallis became Cheryl in Corvallis, Oregon. And I was like, no, we're not accepting that edit. It is Cheryl in Corvallis. People know.
Or like Cheryl and then last name in Corvallis, because when I have multiple Cheryls in Corvallis, it's like, no, we've been there.
Yeah, right.
We got one Cheryl, we got one Corvallis, and it's Cheryl in Corvallis.
And then on future reference, it was just Cheryl. That's right.
That's right.
It was just
Cheryl
church
says,
check, I should say.
It's just sign stealer. Alleged.
I was going to make a point of
Suspected.
not doing that this year.
Are we
by the
over
way.
that?
I'm not trying to make you feel bad for doing that, but I almost said, you know what? We have another listener who we're going to be thanking in some weeks. We used to make jokes about who he voted for, and I know that he's kind of like over that sarcastic joke. And I thought, you know what? I think Cheryl might be over
Probably.
the accusations of sign stealing.
All right, fine. Stricken from the record. Here's what Cheryl says. This year, I'd like to thank the whole TENS community, especially the folks on Slack. You know, that's a thing we were talking about the other day, that like, because obviously it's very complicated, our interactions with Facebook and Instagram and particularly Facebook because of all the bad things Facebook has done. And yet it's also a big place for the TENS to hang out. And it's sort of like, what's the greater good here? Well, the greater good seems to be the TENS getting to relate to each other and hang out and spread friendship and joy, even if that has to happen in a cursed place like Facebook. But also, you mentioned the Slack is very active, and
It really is.
my sense is Slack comes with a little bit less baggage.
Yes, absolutely. I mean, I think that a lot of people who already know what it is know it from like as a workplace communication tool, but we've really built, I mean, I believe we did this sort of kind of on a lark. I believe another listener set this up to see if people would check it out.
I set it up.
That's right. I forgot. You set it up and then you forgot your password.
Yes.
So you had to hand it off to somebody else. But
Yes.
no, it's really become, and I've been hearing from more and more people coming over to Slack saying, I can't be on Facebook anymore, but I'm glad to find my people over here. So it's an option if anybody's interested. Go to tbtl.net and look on the contact page for a link.
Cheryl says, I'm grateful for my dear friend, Alyssa Adelson, whose amazing artwork can be found at alyssaAdelson.com. That's Alyssa is Elissa, and then last name is Adelson, WASHINT, baby, DC. AlyssaAdelsonDesign.com. I've been trying to spell too many things on the show recently. So go check that out. Also, Cheryl is shouting out Sarah of Magpie Mouse Studios, which I told you, I went and tried to find Sarah once in Pike Place. And Sarah was off doing some high-level stuff, but still had somebody at the studio entertaining the crowd. There was a large crowd of people. This person was, I think, maybe making some jewelry or earrings, and people were enraptured. That's how big of an operation Sarah's running over there at Magpie Mouse now. Corinne gets a shout out for always checking in. Ruby and Leanna for sharing their love of Broadway. My fellow admin, Lynn, and all the folks who share their pod pets on our Slack channel. There are too many others to name you all. Being a part of an online community in 2025 is usually stressful, but TENS are a special group who support one another through ups and downs in ways that I've never seen duplicated in all my time on the internet. You know, Cheryl, that's a really nice compliment. I don't mean to us, but I mean to the tens of listeners, and I guess in some reflective way, back to us and the show. I hadn't thought about that, but yeah, online communities can be very unruly. They can be tough to deal with sometimes, or they can, just be places that not everyone feels welcome. But you hear almost exclusively, good reports about the TENS talking to each other.
That is very, very true, and Cheryl's a big part of that as well. I do know that on the occasion, on the very, very rare occasion that sometimes maybe somebody may be tonally slightly off for what we're going for, I know that Cheryl will gently kind of steer everybody back to the place where we should be tonally speaking.
Cheryl says, thank you all for being the awesome folks that you are, and to Luke and Andrew and John for being the core that keeps bringing us all together year after year. Last but not least, TENS. In times that are fraught with anxiety and stress, please take care of yourselves. You are not alone. Talk to someone if you need to. You matter, and your mental health matters, so please don't give up. That is from our friend and one of today's dazzling donors, Cheryl in Corvallis. There's this sign that they put up. Cheryl Churchick in Corvallis, Oregon. There's a sign that they put up somewhere near the freeway, somewhere off the freeway, kind of between Portland and where I live. And truthfully, I think it's for probably like a religious organization, and so that part of it doesn't really check out with my personal worldview anymore. But it said it's basically a message of hope, and I think it's a sort of anti-suicide message. It said, "Tomorrow needs you." I thought, wow, that's really powerful. Like
Yeah,
that actually,
it
you know,
is.
I'm not going to call the phone number because it's like 1-800-GOD or something. But like the idea that tomorrow needs you, I was like, man, that kind of like that made an impact.
Yeah,
Like
you saying
I'm like,
that right now is making an impact. Honestly, that's really well said.
Yeah, so there you go. We can find wisdom in all kinds of places, even off of the side of Interstate 5 near a German Shepherd training kennel and whatever else is going on over there.
Well, Luke, you know where else I mean, I wasn't even going to bring this up because it's just weirdly bizarre. I almost brought this up on Monday, and then I decided to pass on it. But you just saying we find wisdom in unusual places. I was at, and I won't shut up about it, I was at Whirly Ball on Sunday,
Oh, yeah.
as you know.
We get it. You did well.
And I actually didn't. One time I was so proud I actually blocked a shot, and then everybody yelled at me because I was blocking my own team shot. Because you switch it back and forth between yellow and red. And
That's not fair to
sometimes
you.
you're in the red car, sometimes you're in the yellow car. And I mean, other people have made similar mistakes. I saw in the same game somebody shoot for the wrong basket, but I actively stuck my stick up, and I was so proud that I blocked a shot, and I blocked my own teammate's shot on the goal. It was really something. But I was going to share with you some of these photos I took. I was waiting for like the guests of honor to get at the Whirly Ball place. Vives and I are just sort of milling about, and then on a piece of paper that is just printed, like just like regular, you know, not even card stock, but just regular paper. This quote was printed, cut out with apparently scissors, and taped up to a window at Whirly Ball.
Okay.
Love and kindness are the very basis of society. If we lose these feelings, society will face tremendous difficulties. The survival of humanity will be endangered.
Wow. That's a very intense message for Whirly Ball. And
it
also
really
true.
Was. And it's very true. And I was like, this is really interesting. I'm like, what prompted this? What moment? Does it have something to do with where we are in this country culturally and politically? Does it have what prompted this? It's just a call for love and kindness being the basis of society, and that we need to survive by being loving and kind. Now, I did go into the restroom later to wash my hands, because I wash my hands after every game of Whirly Ball. Like, I talk about bus hands. Sometimes when I ride the bus, as soon as I'm off the bus, I need to. Yeah. But then I saw there were two more quotes stuck up on the mirror, and their spiritual growth involves giving up the stories of your past. I almost sent that to you and said, this is bad news for the podcast. Spiritual growth involves giving up stories of your past.
Well, thank God we have no interest in growing spiritually.
And another one said, and this one is in first person, which really gives up the gambit here that clearly these are just quotes from somebody else that they printed up. And now here is my secret, a very simple secret. It is only with the heart that one can see rightly. What is essential is invisible to the eye. No credits on these quotes, but very clearly quotes that people hung up. But before I realized that this was sort of a theme throughout, I was really taken aback by this quote about love and kindness, just apparently randomly taped up to a piece of glass at Whirly Ball.
Yeah, that's interesting. I mean, that have to come down from the management, presumably, because if you're just taping stuff. No, what I mean is
no. So I'm sorry, Luke. I'm laughing at the next photo on my phone was a piece of graffiti that I had forgotten I took while drunk the night before on Saturday night, and it just says, "There's some poo-poo where my pee-pee should be." And there's something about scrolling on my phone from that quote about love and kindness to this abhorrent quote from a dive bar bathroom.
That's the beauty, not only of the journey we just went on with you, but more generally with TBTL, Andrew. It is we can go from the sublime to the subterranean really quickly on this program.
I'm so sorry.
Hello and welcome to Top Story.
There's a trend that I've seen popping up on TikTok the last few days that's now it will soon be over, Andrew, because it's been written up in the New York Times, which usually means we're now in the gloaming, if you will. We're in the late stages of whatever the trend is.
Which means CBS Sunday Morning will do it.
In 2 years, and I'll probably be covering it.
I wasn't sure if I was allowed to make that joke.
If you get a call from me, Andrew, saying goodnight to you, know that I'm filming it for CBS Sunday Morning. Okay. So act cool. If you get a call from me in 2 years saying goodnight to you. This was Gina Trellis writing in the New York Times about this trend that's gone on where you basically have guys in their like maybe 20s or 30s calling each other to say goodnight to each other, kind of as a lark. It's basically, it started as a trend where oftentimes these guys, like wife or girlfriend, would kind of encourage them to do this just to see what would happen.
Mm-hmm.
So they put their friend on speakerphone and they give them a call. When DeAndre Scarborough, a 24-year-old content creator and college research coordinator, decided to call several of his male friends and his brother to wish them each a good night, he knew that they'd be thrown for a loop. Lying in bed with his girlfriend around 11 p.m., Mr. Scarborough made a call delivering the good night message to a friend who immediately responded with confusion and laughter, asking, "You good?" In between giggles, another friend, equally confused, said, "Man, you're calling the wrong number. These are freak hours." Mr. Scarborough had seen the trend online after some nudging by his girlfriend, decided to upload his own video. They go through like basically a bunch of different guys who kind of start doing this as a bit. Again, and every single guy they talked to was, I don't want to say pressured, but inspired to do this by their girlfriend or wife or whatever. But what's interesting to me about the article is that it ends up getting into, like, some of these guys start off doing it as a joke, and then they actually have these kind of sweet, emotional moments with their friends, or not even emotional moments, but just like, it goes from being a bit like, is my friend basically going to think this is ridiculous that I'm wishing him a good night, to kind of being like, why is that off limits for guys to check in on each other that way, occasionally? And then it goes on in the article to talk about some of these guys basically like started off as a joke, and then it was a nice way to connect with one of their friends who then called them the next day to just like talk about some real life stuff or actually make a plan to hang out. And like that you have, I don't know if this is real or just one of these kind of social science stories that goes around, but there's been a lot of writing about male loneliness now. Mm-hmm. And just the fact that guys, our age and certainly younger, like male friendships, I don't know if anybody has figured out why they think this is happening, but it just seems that male friendships are different, or maybe a little more non-existent for a lot of people, a lot of men these days than they were. I was going to say in our father's generation, but my dad has 0 male friends. So I don't know what the high point of male frienddom was, whatever point we've gotten away from now. But I mean, maybe it's just my dad. I mean, he, from church, he knows guys, but like my dad doesn't go do things with his guy friends. He's not one of those fishermen or something like that. So.
Well, I wonder if, I know when you say that this is something that's been written about a lot in the past, couple of years or something, I totally know that and acknowledge that, but I haven't gone deep on it. So I'm not sure if, and you can tell me if you do have a better beat on this, like if it's that there's actually a decline in these kinds of relationships, or we're just sort of examining male relationships now in a way we didn't before, as people are a little bit more open to being, and I'm going to say intimate here, and obviously I don't mean in the physical way, but when you describe the story about saying goodnight to somebody, that's even more intimate to me than just calling somebody randomly and just saying, "Hey, how you doing?" or "Let's check in."
Right.
I've done that before with friends. I'm like, "Hey, we need to check in. Let's text and set up a time to talk. Let's do that, or maybe meet in person." And sometimes I kind of specifically with the idea of like, "What's going on? We haven't checked in a while. What's going on with you?" That's sweet. That's an important thing. I do think there's something. And it makes sense that this started as a joke. Specifically calling anybody to say good night is an incredibly intimate thing.
Yeah.
That's something that you usually do with somebody you're romantic with, or that you are, a family member of.
Yeah. Now, my question, Andrew, is how would you feel if I started calling you and wishing you good night? Because I feel like that might really take this podcast to another level. Mm-hmm. We've clearly...
Oh, so we're taping it? Or do we just talk about it the next day?
Maybe we talk about it the next... Maybe we start off not taping it. Mm-hmm. Because I think short of that, there isn't very much time in the day we're not spending together right now, at least virtually, with these conversations. Right. Like, I also think it's funny because there are these conversations about male friendship and the decline, and then also, like, this idea of these guys checking in on each other. And in a sort of roundabout way, that's essentially what's happening with you and I 5 days a week. Now we have top stories that we often don't get to, but really what it is just a conversation between two buddies about whatever is on their mind for an hour plus every day, which is, I mean, I guess I understand that intellectually, but I forget that sometimes. That basically we're just having a conversation between two friends 5 days a week professionally.
Yes, and so I would say that if I'm going to develop a relationship with anybody where I'm going to make a habit of calling somebody and saying good night, you are probably on the bottom of that list. And it's
Fair.
not because I don't care about you. It's just I don't care for you. No, it's because because you and I are doing a lot of checking in, like all the time. So we're good on that front, I would say. Also, having said that, this whole thing feels a little performative to me. Like any good reminder to stay in touch with folks and try to be there for folks, and I think I'm relatively good at like dropping a random text message to a friend who I haven't talked to in a while because I think about people, just the other day, I just dropped a text to my friend Kristen because, she lives in Ohio and I haven't talked to her in like probably well over 6 months, if not close to a year. So I was just like, how we doing? What's going on? You know what I mean? Like, let me know if we should chat at some point. And I do try to do those types of things.
That's really good. I'm terrible with that stuff. And I do have a fair number of people's birthdays in my calendar now so that I can, try to remember to reach out to at least on that, which of course, funnily enough, is your least favorite kind of communication, is getting a happy birthday message because now you have to generate a response. But I need to be better about that, about staying in touch with people. If only there was an AI program that would just reach out to everyone in my contacts on like a kind of an occasional, it has to seem kind of haphazard, but just if it was like, hey, how's it going? Checking in on you. And then they'll respond and then we can start like a chat going,
Oh my God.
I want you to know that I said that.
I know.
I understood what I was doing. I want you to know. I really, that was intentional.
And then if there was another bot, and then if I had a program that could like kind of respond to just to get deeper into the conversation, then I could kind of.
I just don't want to have the first 3 conversations, Andrew. I want to get into the conversation when it's really good.
Let's talk about the birthday thing for a second, though. Obviously, that's a really interesting point here that I want to examine, and I'm not trying to win an argument here, but just think about something. I am a strong believer that just finding an excuse to check in with somebody is good. So in other words, I have some friends, like my friend Kristen. I've known her since I was in high school. She taught me how to drive. Like, I have no issue just saying, hey, been thinking about you. What's going on? I have some other friends who I care about a lot, but just I've been thinking about you might seem a little bit too, I'll use the word intimate again, or just, I don't know, I can't explain it. So with friends like that, I do look for an excuse to text them. So in other words, it might be like, hey, I saw this thing about this band that we both love, and I'll send you a link to it. And, sort of like I'll find, and without getting into detail, I know that there are some people in my life who have some troubled relationships with other people in their life. Nobody has a troubled relationship with me. I want to make that clear. Never. What could be troublesome? But I do know of some people who are in, let's say, troubled relationships with people, and the other person will reach out to them and just send them, I don't know, a meme or something. I was thinking about you. And that will be met with not just deaf ears, but almost like, how out of touch can you think? How out of touch could you be to think that I would be happy to receive this meme for you or this random thing? And I always think, I think this person is just trying. I think this person isn't going to come in hot with a, hey, let's talk about that thing that happened 6 years ago and like put all of our cards on the table. I think when somebody randomly sends you something like, hey, here's a song that reminded me of you, or here's a photo of a humor in uniform joke that I read in Reader's Digest the other day, and you send it to them, it's like you're just looking to
It's an olive branch.
An olive branch. So I like to do that. I would think that the birthday thing makes it more difficult because on somebody's special day, as we like to call it, they're receiving so many text messages and so many emails from people from all parts of their life that it's like the least fertile time to like start a good conversation.
Or you could do, Andrew, what our friend Jessica does is when she randomly finds a picture of me, from the olden days, she'll just take it and just send it to me with absolutely no comment, as she did this morning. which is a photo of me shirtless, clearly inebriated, standing in front of a sign that's posted on a brick wall that says, "Dress code strictly enforced. We reserve the right to refuse service to anyone." And I cannot tell you where this brick wall was, why I am shirtless. It's nighttime, obviously. What has gone on that this photo exists?
Do you think it could be Vegas? You would be able to tell from the lighting probably if it's outside at all that it's too sunny or something.
It's dark, like it's nighttime. And it doesn't look like there's like the kind of twinkling lights of Vegas. It looks like, and also I'm just wondering, did I get my shirt torn off in a fight? I've never had a period of my adult life where I was like really psyched about being shirtless around people.
Yeah.
Who I don't know. Like, it's not my move because I don't think it's my best look. So it's like, did somebody rip my shirt off as part of an altercation, maybe?
Or could you have just you were drunk enough to be comfortable to make that joke, just like you got rid of your shirt just to pose
that
next
might
to
have been, but I want to figure out, is there a sign like that outside? Was there a sign like that outside the Mandarin Gate back in the day? Because it is this brick wall that looks like it could maybe be that building.
I can picture
is
that.
Is that building brick? You're still going.
I think so. Yeah, that would actually make sense.
But anyway, that's all you have to do is just find a really embarrassing photo of someone you love, and then you just send that to them, and then that'll get the conversation started. That'll keep you in touch.
Well, that gets us into something else that I don't even know if I want to talk about, but it was a coincidence, and this is truly a coincidence that this is now coming up. But I used my friend Kristen as an example of somebody that I randomly texted recently, and it was literally, I don't know, I think it was late last week. I was watching the Mariners game. Something reminded me of Kristen. Been thinking of her anyway. Sent her a text. "What's up? Been thinking about you." She said, "You've been thinking about me because you've been feeling me thinking about you in the universe here, because I had a whole bunch of VHS tapes from my youth digitized recently, including the movie that we made in college." And you'll never lay eyes on this. Now, here's the tough thing about this, and I wouldn't want Kristen to hear this.
I love it. You just turn into the Terminator and just see you running in the direction of Ohio to destroy this tape.
To destroy the tape. Now, it's
travel through time to destroy this tape.
It's not even embarrassing in that, like, I'm not even in it. I'm not on it. I made the movie. It is embarrassing to me, and this is where it gets tough, because I think Kristen, to this day, feels proud of it, and I love that for her, and I would never want to take that away. But we made it together, but like, she's the one who's in it. But it's like during this time when I'm just watching I'm very influenced by weird music, weird movies, stuff like that. This movie is a full half hour long. I have not had I watched about half of the other night and then had to tap out. It's just like this very mopey, psychedelic-y, but obviously made on a VC, a camcorder, right? A VHS camcorder. I mixed in all this music and stuff in post. I had the ability to edit and mix. And so, it's like taken very seriously, but it's just, you wouldn't even call it ponderous because there's nothing to ponder. It's driving around in the rain. It's standing in front of a TV watching psychedelic images for a long time. It's like it all mixed to Miranda Sex Garden and My Bloody Valentine and all of these things that, and again, it's just like, it's such a thing of the moment. But like, for me, it is like, it's a reminder of how kind of self-serious I was about these things, and it's like, to me, it is so cringy. But when Kristen and I would bring this up from time to time, I hadn't seen it since, when did we make it? 1999 or something like that? 1998? I hadn't seen it since we made it in 98. I don't know why I don't have a copy of it, but I don't. Maybe I just got embarrassed and threw it away. But like, when she told me, she's like, "I've been thinking about you too because I digitized it. It's on YouTube now. Here's a link." And by the way, nobody can find it. Trust me, it's locked down. By the way, it's not findable.
You destroyed YouTube. You took down one of the top 4 websites in the world. You destroyed it.
Google Vimeo. Vimeo no longer exists because I burnt it on Sunday. But no, it's like, she sent it to me. I'm like, whoa, I'm going to have to really get into a mental place AKA 17 Miller Lights, in order to watch this thing, because like
you are going to be a problem.
And I am in about 6 or 7 hours. I'm about to be a problem. Miller Lite, she's not coming back. I don't know. So I did watch some of it, and it like there are scenes where we filmed it in my dad's metal shop, and I had her put on a welding helmet, and she's like slowly like pounding steel or something, and there's this weird
I appreciate you being this specific. I appreciate the specificity, because it's helping me picture it, even though I know that
we're driving around downtown Cleveland. There's this area, I believe it's a rainy night, I could be wrong. I remember setting up a tripod at night on railroad tracks near an area where like smokestacks were actually shooting fire out the top of them.
Whoa,
like this happened
sounds kinda
somewhere
cool.
in Cleveland. So it was like this visual imagery that I can't and I got to say, I was like, was it today's dazzling? No, it was yesterday's dazzling donor who said like, try to give yourself a hug. I took that as sort of try to give yourself a break. I'm trying so hard to give myself a break on this, especially knowing that my co-collaborator, the Joel to my Ethan Cohen, is quite proud of this, and I don't want to take that away, and I would be mortified if she heard me giving my raw, although I will be honest with her when we do chat, that I just can't get out of the cringe of my own head over this kinds of stuff. I can't think of anything I've ever done in the past that doesn't bring me a great amount of agita, I suppose. So I guess
right. Well, that's the thing, and I'm sure this person, knowing you for years and years, will like it would be like if you were just like hating on an old episode of TBTL. I would not take that. Maybe I should, but I wouldn't take that really as a criticism of me. I would take that as you kind of feeling the way you sometimes do about your contribution to the show, which of course I need to legally, I must say, your contribution to the show is great. It's why people like the show, but you have a hard time connecting with that information. So I'm sure that she'll be able to understand that you're wanting to destroy the original tape, and then anywhere that it's even been digitally reproduced, and then the building where the servers are, where it was digitally reproduced.
Right.
None of that is a reflection on your friend. That's just because of how you tend to feel about, well, let's be honest, your own self.
I do think it would be hilarious if I went back and I listened to an old episode of TBTL, but I found it cringy because of your performance and not mine.
I mean,
that
to be honest, that's definitely happened many, 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 many times, but maybe this is just a survival instinct for me. I choose to assume that when you are really down on some collaborative project we've done, it's because you hate yourself.
Yes, of course.
Not me.
Always.
Yeah. All right. Well, that seems like a good place to wrap up today's episode of the program.
Just a little light self-loathing on a Wednesday.
Just a touch of self-loathing on a Wednesday, but I'm sure we'll be feeling much better by tomorrow, when I will still be here in DC, and we will have one final episode from the East Coast. I'll be able to tell you how Metallica was. Yeah, you'll have a bobblehead. I'll have listened to more Pantera than in my entire life previous to it. That's going to be a lot. So I'll give you a full report tomorrow. Anyway, in the meantime, thank you for listening. We're going to be back here tomorrow. I've already said that part. So now here I can just say the ending of the show, which is thanks for listening, and please remember, no mountain too tall.
And good luck to all. Good night, Luke.
Power out.